Thanks. I'm Damien. Very quickly, what is the main or strongest counter-argument to your proposal? And are there any in-between or compromise alternatives? If there is one thing that the proposal cannot do without, or one or two things that the proposal cannot do without, what is that? And I'd also like to ask, what is the cost? Because Lam Keong spoke about an impending crisis. What is the cost of the alternative of doing nothing or implementing a different proposal to yours, both in physical and non-physical terms? Thank you.
What would be the counter-argument to, a counter-argument to these reforms? I guess the most obvious counter-argument is do nothing, right? So but as I explained, if you do nothing, because our flats are aging, because our leases are running out, because people are living longer, because the number of absolute elderly poor will treble in the next 30 years, because our labor markets of the future will inevitably become more disjointed, right? And dysfunctional. Because of all these things, then do nothing means we are going to have a crisis. We are inevitably going to have a crisis.
We have old people demonstrating in the streets.
Yeah. So it's a recipe. So a good friend of mine called it a long-term time bomb with a long fuse. He was a senior director in the IMF. He's not making a light comment, right? Senior director in the IMF, and he's the chief economist. He was the chief economist of one of our leading governance institutions. Okay, so he didn't make this comment lightly. It's a long-term crisis baked in the cake if we do nothing. What are the other alternatives? There have been other alternatives. The Workers' Party has come up with an alternative. Last night, they came out last night. The SDP has come up with another alternative. They came out with that a long time ago, right? So for the SDP, they would have all flats being bought and sold at cost only to the HDB. And that's the SDP model, right? For the Workers' Party, just came out last night, and we welcome them to the debate because it's great that they sat down and did a really thorough, rigorous, careful, detailed analysis of the problem, and they came up with their own solutions, and they're valid solutions. So they want, for example, they're recommending that HDB be a buyer of last resort at the 70-year-old level. They call it a universal lease buyback scheme, right? They're calling for affordability of flats being linked to income as opposed to being sold at cost. So that's their proposal, right? They're calling for, they said it's not practical to have universal SIRS because it's too expensive, logistics are too difficult. So have as much SIRS as possible. Okay, so these are all reasonable arguments. And these are the kinds of arguments that we should be having both with interested parties as well as with the authorities. This is the kind of informed, researched, well-considered debate on key issues that we desperately need to have. So while we don't agree with the SDP model or entirely with the WP model, we think ours is better. For example, we think that we should deal with the problem of leasehold erosion at the 50-year mark. Why wait till the 70-year mark? And why? And it's going to be expensive. You expect if you expect the HDB to the buyer of last resort at a reasonable price, and when your flat is 70 years old, they're going to be spending a lot of money, right? If you just alter the leasehold laws, the market supports the value of your resale price for free. Okay, so I mean, we can argue the costs and benefits of various. That is a reasonable argument. I'm not poo-pooing the argument. I'm saying the pros and cons of each argument, and we should have them. That's why at the beginning we said this is not the last word, by no means, in this debate. This is just, we hope, a rigorous and well thought out first step to consider a foundation to solve these key problems. What are the problems? Leasehold erosion, asset protection, affordability, accessibility. When all these long-term trends, the fragmentation of the labor market, aging, increase of the poor, the inevitable law of Bala's table, all these long-term things are happening and threatening the integrity of our housing development board system.